We're on. Deserae, thank you.
Hello.
Thank you for spending some time with me um, and taking the time out of your crazy schedule because you have another crazy schedule. I mean, I guess no, we all don't have crazy schedules because some people kind of, some folks have the ability to work one job and um, not too much was affected. Maybe they started working from home and
hmm
maybe they don't work directly with people. Maybe they work supporting some type of like IT system or something like that. And, it's just kind of like, yeah, a regular scheduled program. But
Right.
you've had the pleasure of working with some student athletes during the pandemic, not only as a part of, I would probably say not only as a part of like your own passion, but as a part of your graduate level work. So where do we want to start off? Start
Great
off.
question.
Yeah, where do we want to start off? Let's start off with the work that you were doing with student athletes, so that you're currently doing with student athletes.
Sure thing. I am just finishing up the end of my program at John F. Kennedy University, where I was working with student athletes doing sports psychology consulting, sports psychology coaching. And that entailed just doing one-on-one sessions with individual athletes and also group sessions with the team in order to develop and build cohesion and kind of if the team wasn't collaborating well, we'd go over the different stages of the team formulating, the storming, forming, storming, norming type of stuff. And then I also worked with the coaches. This most recent internship, I collaborated with the coach a lot. So my role consists of a lot of listening intently and reflecting back and trying to figure out ways that I can give the athlete the tools that they need in order to cope and manage stress better and kind of deal with all the things that come with not only being a student and an athlete, but a lot of the mental skills that I give to athletes or that mental skills coaches give to athletes. They are ones that they can use in any part of their life. And I think the work that I've done most recently, I did a college level, worked with a college level soccer team at a junior college here in Oakland. And I don't know if it was just because this was me getting up there in my hours, completing way over 400 hours of work with athletes and with coaches, but it felt like I was coming into myself as a practitioner finally, and I kind of understand more how I'm going to be practicing as I go out into the world and what that work will look like.
Well, like I said before, you have taken on quite a bit during quarantine, during this super weird time, right? And so first, let me offer you a bit of gratitude by saying thank you for doing that work with student athletes. Um, this is also a passion of mine, but yeah, I'm constantly reminded that people who do direct or that provide direct service to human beings are often kind of like, I don't know, forgotten about, especially when we're talking about people's behaviors.
Mm,
I think specifically when we talk about student athletes, athletes in general, we tend to forget that they're people as well. Tend to think
yeah.
they're like these high performing beings that don't feel emotion maybe, or they're able to like harness their emotion naturally and, use that to improve in whatever, um, athletic competition they're a part of. Um, so yeah, I think it's important the work that you're doing. So yeah, I want to say thank you first, and then what got you started, right? Because I don't know if the way you were the way you're approaching um, Sports psychology is a little different than what I historically know about it. It's usually been performance based, right?
Hmm.
How can we get you to be better? And that's it, right? We're going to address one part of you and not really, I don't know, the whole person, right? You can still perform really well, but um, as a practitioner, I would say it's probably more important to address everything going on with the individual. No one
Hmm.
with college athletes, yeah, that's a whole, yeah, you're dealing with a whole different type of person. But yeah, backtrack. What got you interested in sports psych?
Oh, well, first off, let me tell you that I think you can appreciate the work that we're doing as interns at JFKU because you are in the same field in that you always have to work to support someone and really, really be in tune with what they might need in that moment, whether it's just for you to listen and just facilitate or ask the right questions. And so thank you for having me on and just for recognizing that. And it is a really weird space to be in right now. I forgot to mention I've been doing all of this through Zoom platform. And I mean, I love being able to have those talks in between with the athletes at practice and between them like coming to the water cooler just to get a sip of water and you can just check in with them real quick and just those small interactions that you took for granted before all of this happened and not being able to go to practice. I was really missing those moments, but I found a lot of, I guess the theme of the year is just adaptability. You find ways to connect with people regardless. And I mean, especially when you're working on behalf of a population of students that's really trying to navigate this time in their lives and the time that they never would have thought any of us would have ever thought we had to deal with. So that's been interesting, Zoom meetings. And I am not the type of person that likes to sit in front of a computer, and I just feel like there's an element of ADD there that it's hard, and so that has been a challenge, but we've definitely made it work, and the athletes kind of made it easy to make me feel like they came in wanting the knowledge that I had to give, and then also just wanting to embrace the questions that I had for them to kind of learn more about developing the skill. But you brought up a really good point because in my mind and the way that I'm approaching this, the performance on the athletic field is really important, right? And really the coach wants these guys to be the best athletes that they can be. And from that perspective, it's a performance, but everything we do in life is a performance. Like I'm here talking to you and we're having this conversation, and that's a performance. I do personal training, group fitness. I have to perform for these people that I'm not super necessarily close with, but I have to go out there and give them an indication of connectedness and making them feel comfortable. So if we really pay attention to the parts of the athlete, like you said, it's just very holistic. We have to identify the values that they have. And that's always a really interesting question to ask them. What are your values? What do you hold dear? Like what's important to you? Because most of the time they don't know. And I mean, that's okay because I'm here to help them do that work and really, really pay attention to what's important. But bringing it back to uh, how they perform on the field, we can't perform well if we're not right within, and if every part of us is not feeling like we can adapt. And that doesn't mean that we have to hide things or push emotions away. It's quite the opposite, where we have to really, really be aware of what we're dealing with and then figure out a way to cope with it and to manage it and to best move forward with what we have. And all that just to say that as an athlete, I got into sports psychology in this world, in this field, because I have been an athlete my entire life. And ever since I recognized later on at the college level when I was competing in track and field that I did so much better in sport when I was just, there was joy in what I was doing. And I always loved just movement and running. And I loved, there was never a time where I felt like I was losing passion for playing. It was just always, there was a time where it came time to big competitions that I would just get in my head, or like at practices, I was a multi-eventer for track and field. So my training partner and I, shout out to Zoe Mead. She's still one of my best friends because that event is so grueling. And so when you have to endure those many hours of training on the field together and then show up to the track a day before everyone else to compete for 2 days and then stay the duration of the 4 day meet, it gets exhausting. And there's just like there's so much emotion that comes with that, mental and physical fatigue. And as well as I felt that I would do at practice, I felt when it came time to big meets, I couldn't put it together. And I couldn't figure out why. And I didn't recognize the impact of the full impact of the mind body connection until late, until into my senior year of running. And at that point, I had been playing with the idea of going into some field of working with athletes where I could work with them from a psychological standpoint. And then the JFK program was something that kind of came up in like a Google search. And then from there, I was in the mindset that that's what I wanted to do. If I couldn't manage to bring it all together as I wanted to, then I would really, really love to be in a space where I could help athletes perform in that way. And I realized, looking back on it in retrospect, there was just things that I didn't deal with in my own personal life that I allowed to just transfer on to the track. And it's interesting. We talk about compartmentalizing parts of our life so that you can perform on the field, but that isn't, I mean, it doesn't work like that. I mean, we are just whole entire individuals. So if we're not dealing with something, personal relationships or losses, dealing with grief, then that will really, really show up on the field and our level of play when it comes to sport. So that's something that I place a lot of importance on when it comes to building that relationship and that rapport with athletes initially. I want them to know that I care about them as a human before I am quick to say, okay, you need to do this, this, and this in order to score this many goals or to fulfill your role or to make Coach happy on the field.
No.
And I think that's really, really important in this work and the work that you do. I'm sure you recognize that it's it's really, really just a pivotal part of making that connection. People don't care until they don't care what you do or what you have to say until they know that you care about them. And I think it's definitely a skill, one that I'm still working on, is just making that immediate connection and kind of building that feeling of really allowing the athlete to feel like I'm giving them the space to be who they are and to feel that they can be vulnerable. Vulnerability is huge. I think that's probably one of the things that I also value most. So that was my journey into this field and kind of where I'm at right now with it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you bring up something super valid, which is the relationship piece, and we can't overlook the relationship between people. Right before you start talking about performance, before you can even, you know, give your sales pitch to like why you're working with someone,
Hmm.
develop some type of rapport, a healthy rapport with them, where they feel trust. They can trust you, like you said before,
Yeah.
to be vulnerable around you, because I mean, having someone teach you something requires you to acknowledge that you don't know. You know what I mean? And that's
Hmm.
I don't know where that's necessarily promoted in our culture, right? I don't know how
Right.
people are walking around be like, you know what? It's completely okay to say I don't know. Like I had a moment. I'm actually at my mom's house, and you know, it's weird to be in this space right now because uh, I've been, you know, over this time, I've been super reflective, right? And I think a lot of people have been extremely reflective on their life, where they want to go, where they've been, where they are now. You know,
Right, taking that self-awareness piece to like a whole nother level.
almost to a scary level at some point.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like I'm really tired of thinking.
I feel that.
So I was thinking about this idea of I don't know, and I pondered on the idea of I don't know for I don't know, maybe what it felt like 2 to 3 minutes. But I just remember having a conversation with my dad super early, and you know, him asking me a question. Maybe it was something like I was reading or something about school, and he asked me a question. I said, oh, I don't know. He's like, what do you mean you don't know? He's like, you gotta know. And I'm like, but I don't know the answer. And not to say that was, you know, my entire life, but I just remember that moment. I mean, I was thinking about this yesterday, and I was thinking,
Hmm.
like, wait, how come it's so wrong, or like we perceive it to be wrong to say, you know, I don't know, I don't know the answer, right? And that's like,
Right.
for me, it's a perfectly healthy answer. I think it bigger than just saying I don't know. That tells me a little bit something about who you are as a person when you
Hmm.
admit that to yourself. Like, I don't know. Now, there's a difference between I don't know and I don't care and I don't want to know the answer.
Yep. Sure.
and um, and I don't know, but I'm open to finding out how to get the answer, like curiosity. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that. 'Cause I was just thinking about this idea. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I love that I love that reflection. It kind of I get those moments too where you just are sitting there for no reason. A thought from your childhood that was just buried deep in there comes into your mind, and it just really brings up a lot of I guess a lot of the person that you are now. I mean, and how that lesson just related back to where you are today. And I I feel the way you do. I used to be that person that was just so worried about not knowing the answer, and if uh if I didn't know the answer, then I felt dumb, or like if I was trying to speak up in class and I felt like I had something valid to say, and I'm thinking like, oh, I don't know if that's right. So I just wouldn't say anything at all instead of risking just feeling embarrassed, even though nobody would care that I raised my hand and said something that maybe just didn't relate at all to what we were talking about. And I think there's a lot of there's something that I've been coming into more and more is that vulnerability piece. And I think for men and women, it comes in different forms. And I think something that was a challenge for me in this last internship was I was working with all male athletes, right? And so being vulnerable to them, that word is don't use that word because I don't want to be vulnerable. And that means that and when I did ask, a lot of the time they associated it with being weak, right? And it's interesting to work with the male and the female athlete and see the differences in their perception of what the word means. And I mean, honestly, as a society, we don't really see the word vulnerable and place it with anything positive. But there's I don't know if you listen to Brene Brown. We had this discussion before.
Yeah. I've listened to it
Yeah.
over podcast.
Yeah, she's one of my favorites for that reason. And it's just I learned so much in trying to really make these young men feel like they can be in the space,
Mm.
and feel like they can be just genuine and sincere, and disclose things, and put me in a better position to understand how I might be able to help them. But it's hard, and especially like a lot of these guys are coming from really hard neighborhoods in Oakland, right? And I mean, dealing with loss of friends and from gun violence, and some of them are having to live. I mean, honestly, like I would say 85 to 90% of the guys were working part-time jobs,
Yeah.
still trying to go to school, still like trying to get used to online learning, and hated it. And I feel that like
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I I mean, for me, school has never, when I was growing up, school has never been like something that I felt really passionate about. I always loved the learning piece, but I always felt like I was on someone else's time, and someone was telling me to turn in this assignment, and it just always felt like for me, the thing that kept me staying motivated. I got good grades, but it was just like always because I need to stay eligible for basketball or volleyball or to run track.
Right.
And I think it's just really, really hard to be in this world now where these guys are, they love and have a passion for soccer and it brings them joy, but they're having to deal with the stress of having to get online at a certain time, and all
Sure.
and do their assignments all on the computer and not be social, and I mean, on top of just sitting on the computer all day, then they have to get up and go to work for a few hours. And so some of them are supporting their families with the money they make. And it's just, it's, yeah, I love that I get to be in that space with them. And I feel so, I feel like that the work that JFK, because there's a few JFK interns there still, that they're doing there is just, it's something that is going to be invaluable in the long run. And even if the athletes didn't say, and not my own personal impact, but even if the athletes don't outright say that this was effective, this was impactful, I mean, maybe along the road they'll realize that maybe they got a little sports psychology nugget, whether it was practicing mindfulness or gratitude or journaling, and they were able to take that and run with it and build that self-awareness and that level of self-reflection. So, I mean, that's all the hope is when I come in there. I just want to make them feel like they can learn a little bit more about themselves, be more vulnerable with themselves and with other people, even though it's a scary place,
Yeah.
and just continue to find ways to feel fulfilled and find joy, whether that's on in training or whether that's just being with family or friends, because we've, again, adaptability, had to find new ways to find joy in these weird COVID times.
Sure. So yeah, you touched on something really interesting, and I don't know how many people get to see this. Um, Being a woman and being able to work with young men, and especially when I say, yeah, young, definitely young men that are trying to find out a little bit more about themselves and see what that process looks like for them in terms of practicing vulnerability, because I think it's a practice, right? It's
Hmm.
never done. You never stop. You never graduate from vulnerability.
Yep.
Oh, yep, nope. There's another one. Oh, nope, there's another one. Like, yep, there's another opportunity for you to be vulnerable, and that really is a challenge. So, yeah, I think we'll touch on that later on. But I also want to I want to backtrack to your relationship with sport, right? Because you brought up something as I was mentioning, my reflectionary moment with about my father. Um, I don't know if we talk a lot in mainstream culture. Maybe it's increased, but I don't know if we talk a lot about women's sports or the relationship between um, yeah, young girls and sports, right? Like especially
Hmm.
there's so many different factors depending on maybe the family structure, the uh, ethnic factors involved, right? Like maybe that's
100%.
You know what I mean? So I
Yep.
want to get a little bit more understanding of, you know, what were the pieces that worked for you? You know, who, obviously you had a support system. Someone was supporting you and saying like, Deserae, go get it. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't think that's the case for, that could very well not be the case for so many other girls. So yeah, what was it?
Yeah.
Playing multiple sports? Was it, yeah.
I have a funny story about that, and maybe I disclosed this to you before, but like I said, it was just such a struggle to get up in the morning to go to school. And if like my sisters didn't wake me up to go to school and get on the bus, I was not going. So my oldest sister had the responsibility of getting me up in the morning, and I was such a brat. So she would get me up and I would pretend to get dressed, and then I would just go lay back in bed, and then she would come in a few minutes later. And there was this one morning where I was refusing to get up. I was refusing to take a shower. And so I was really young. She carried me into the bathroom, put me in the tub, put the water on, and put shampoo in my hair just to make sure that I wouldn't get out, because we needed to get to school. And I think my parents have always been incredibly supportive of just everything my sisters and I have done. And I have two older sisters, and my my dad has, in the past, I remember this very, very clearly. He has been asked, like in front of us a couple of times, well, don't you wish you ever had a boy, just to see what that was like? And he always was like, no, my girls are good. Like I that's never been something that I felt like I was missing in my life. But my girls are more than enough. And my parents have always they've really instilled hard work and dedication, compassion, and commitment to everything you do. And I think for me personally, my older sisters were just, there were people I grew up observing, and from the moment that I could walk is my parents' story, and I saw them active, I wanted to do everything that they were doing, and they were both very active. And so my middle sister and I, we had the pleasure of getting to play 2 years on varsity basketball together, which was super, super cool. My freshman to my sophomore year. And then we also got to run track together, and we did the 4x4 together and handed off the baton to one another, which was also really cool. But I think just as much as I wish in retrospect would have gone back and really placed an importance on education, I think if I was really inspired by athletics, because they say I was a really aggressive kid, and I can see I might I might have been. And that was just a place where I felt like I could really just be uninhibited and be aggressive and be assertive, and not be told by like my teacher that I'm being too much or doing the most or too loud.
Yeah.
And I just really felt like I had a place in PE, whether we were doing just some sprinting, and in middle school when I just started playing basketball super competitively. It was just always a place where I felt grounded and just felt like I could be liberated in that space. And even now, I think as an adult, I have to really bring myself back in, because I am pretty far removed from my college track days, and I try to run like I did then and end up hurting myself. But
Playing that game.
yeah, but it's definitely a passion that I still have. And I've also really, I really, really love the team atmosphere, and just the social aspect of being on a team was always my favorite too. And some of the best friends that I still have today are people that I grew up playing sport with. And that I mean, it's just, especially for just a young girl growing up and feeling like you can have that sense of acceptance in playing sport, because like you said, it's not something that has in the past really been encouraged, is girls getting into sport, and it's really cool now to see a lot of the women that are making their way. I mean, as the coach for the 49ers, and then the Giants also just recently hired a woman to be a part of their coach. And I mean, it's incredible from the perspective that I have, and just being able to witness this at this moment in history and see how much progress has been made and where we're at right now and where we're going. And just like with the elections recently, like just to see this woman, oh my gosh, like it makes me so emotional to think about the young girls that see this woman and really can imagine themselves in that position.
Well,
And I think sport has empowered me as a person and as a woman. It just made me feel like I could take on anything and everything. And I think that's how I made it through grad school. Like, it's grit and resilience. Like, from your swim, I could never be a swimmer. I just have like sweating in the water is just blows my mind. It's just like the weirdest feeling. But I mean, you understand like the grit and the resilience piece, and of course you being a student also, it's taxing. And I don't think I would have been able to make it through had it not been for my experiences with having to overcome. And whether that was from a physical aspect, I mean, sport is so mental. I probably wouldn't have gone to grad school otherwise, considering I was just being thrown in the shower and forced to get on the damn bus.
So you bring up an excellent point about representation and it being so important. One of the things that I had to take into account, regardless of my my political views, it is that how important is that? Similarly to Barack Obama being elected president, right? That was very symbolic. And in similar senses, right now we're seeing this kind of intersectionality of not only are you seeing a woman, but you're seeing a woman of color.
Mm-hmm.
And we can dive into her, not only being a Black woman, but our, Jamaican and Indian descent, right? That in itself, again, is a story that's very American, right? That's extremely American, but a narrative that we're not going to talk about as often as we should, right?
Mm-hmm.
Many of people who have that type of family structure where people aren't from here. Everyone's not from here, right?
Yeah.
We're far enough back. We're like, man, no one's from here. All right.
Yeah.
um,
Truth.
so I think it's, I have to be reminded. I'm glad you said that, to talk about that visual that that everyone sees, but specifically young girls who, I feel this way about men and women, and it's got to be so confusing to be a person right now if you were a young person growing up, because you have these mixed messages, you have all these identities out there, and
Yeah.
you're like you're overexposed to them. You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, wait, whoa, okay. So you got
Totally.
you got the vice president of the United States as someone, then you've got like a Brene Brown, right? I mean, I'm not sure what children are listening to Brene Brown, but maybe a couple. But,
Wise ones, wise children.
right. And then you go, and I can't help that we don't talk about this enough, but like access to porn, access to what's the video, the WAP video, you know what I mean? You have
Yeah.
I don't have a single thing against anyone who participates in porn or who is an artist and they're expressing themselves, because that's your right. You know what I mean? That is who am I to tell you what you're doing is wrong? Now, the other part is like, well, I would be confused if I was a kid.
Right.
If I was a young person, not even a kid. If I was a younger person, I mean, hell, I get confused all the time. Well, I don't know, maybe, like maybe, but but it's,
Right. The filter isn't as, I mean, like at the young age, if you can't filter it out as much.
yeah, you're like, well, what? I don't. Okay, whatever. I'll figure it. I guess I'll just figure it out. So I'm glad you brought up representation, and yeah. So I don't want to linger on it, but one of the things that I won't understand that I probably want a little bit more perspective about is that difference between um, uh, not just one difference, but the differences between you know um, women in sports and men in sports, right? And I've had um, I've had uh, um, I've done a good amount of reading, but it's different when it's coming from someone who might have experienced this. And I never really thought about this idea of masculinity within sport, right? And specifically when we're talking about like body types, right? And
Yes.
like, man, that is not something. I mean, yes, there can be men who who are not satisfied with their bodies, but I don't think it's anywhere close to what a woman would have to endure if they're continuing to play sport. And obviously there's we could go, that's a whole hour conversation on expectations of women and what they're supposed to look like and what they're not supposed to look like. So
Yep.
did you experience that? Was that something that you saw in the sports that you played?
Oh yeah. Excellent question. It's been, I actually was talking to a friend about this the other day, and I was in high school especially. I was always dressed in basketball shorts and t-shirts, or if it was cold, it's sweats and t-shirts, because I practiced after school. Like, what do I need to get dressed for? Who am I trying to impress? And I was, even in middle school, it was just, there was always, because I love sport, I would go out, I would eat really fast so I could go play basketball or wall ball. And so there was just, I was put into this category like, she's probably gay or lesbian because she doesn't show interest in boys. She wants to just play sport and immerse herself in that. And that was something, that was probably one of the things that I was constantly hearing from middle school into high school. And I mean, I didn't have a boyfriend. I just didn't. I mean, those just, my focus was on trying to be a better athlete
Sure.
and my friends. And so I guess because at that time there were girls and guys experimenting with dating and this, that, and the other. And I mean, yeah, there were guys I was interested in, and but it just was never, it was never a priority. So because of that, I was made fun of for potentially being a lesbian, and for my body type. I was always very, very strong. I had big legs, I had big shoulders. I've had biceps since forever. And so that was always just a cause of ridicule throughout my life playing sport. And what I think is something, again, the support system that I had, my parents and my sisters, I reflect back on my upbringing and how much I was held by the people that were closest to me, that I don't know how my life would have turned out if it had been that I didn't have my parents and my sisters to fall back on all the time, or to tell me that um, that those standards of society are not ones that I have to live up to. And so I never really let those things bother me. But I mean, I've actually been in sessions with girls and with women who do feel that way, who feel like they are constantly being held to the standard of beauty, and it's always changing, right? Like flat butts were in the 90s, and now big butts are
Yeah.
in 2020. Like
Sure.
standards of beauty are always changing, and I think that it's hard to be a girl or a woman in sport. And it really is like, what's her name,
Oh, yeah. I'm drawing.
Semanyana, I think, Semyana.
Yeah.
The 800 runner, from, oh my gosh, I forget where she's from, but I mean, she's amazing and she's so talented, and she didn't do anything to enhance her skill or her ability. She was naturally born that way. I mean, for me, and people see this differently,
Right.
she's always being ridiculed for the person that she is and how she was born. And it frustrates me so much. Like, they are keeping her from competing against other women
Sure.
because they say her testosterone levels are naturally too high. And I mean, not only does she get ridiculed and constantly tested by track and field organization for that, like, there's people always going on about her body type and how she looks.
Yep.
And it's really hard to be I mean, a woman athlete, and especially when you are in a light as big as that, when you're like on that kind of stage. And I mean, I think imposter syndrome is kind of one of those symptoms of being a woman in that light. Is you might not feel. And I mean, I as a woman, whether in my career or like in my master's program, and as I come into my way of practicing as a consultant, I've been in that space, and I've talked to other women and other athletes, and it's so common for us to not feel like we deserve to be there. And for men, I think it does happen, but not at the same rate. For them, again, it's like that vulnerability piece where you shouldn't cry, and you shouldn't show any kind of emotion. And if you're hurt and you're scraped up, just be a man and throw some dirt on it.
Yeah.
And so I think we deal with, I mean, as athletes and individuals, there's both sides to how men and women have to show up in the world and present themselves. And I think about like the way that LeBron James is treated because he speaks up against things that he sees that are unjust. And Colin Kaepernick, like, it's so frustrating to me. And I think that's to see people put them down and constantly just berate them because they're actual people with actual views and perceptions of the world. And of course, like, they want to advocate for those who are not getting justice. And I mean, it's just, yeah, being a woman is hard. But then I think about like those men and what they have to face, and it's just it's I wonder if it's ever going to change. I'm hopeful for the future, but I really would love to see a world where people can generally feel like athletes are individuals too. Like, people are well, they were not watching football or the NFL because people were taking knees. And I can't see the sense in that. I really can't. I mean, I really can't.
Well, I decided. I decided after uh, Colin Kaepernick was essentially blackballed from the league that I wasn't going to watch football anymore. Not because he was taking a knee, but because he was blackballed for taking a knee.
Yeah.
I'd already been losing interest. I'd already been kind of, I'd already been kind of losing interest in the NFL because it started to become more of a drama than sport. We started talking about, I used to love watching the highlights and I would love watching ESPN, Sports Center. And then I started to see it become more and more about their personal lives, but not personal lives and like not I didn't see it in like a way that was promoting, um positivity.
Hmm.
Started to turn into one of those like daytime drama shows or those, like The View.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't really, not to say I don't care. I recognize that they're a person. Um, but I don't necessarily need to hear about their personal lives. Like if that's something I want to do, then I guess I could explore that in another way. I mean,
Twitter.
Yeah, right. Like I get what I have a general understanding of why sports was going in that direction. There's definitely
Hmm.
theories out there with the implementation of like fantasy sports and the various leagues trying to broaden their influence or broaden their audience. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You got to get more personal. But yeah, I totally agree with you in terms of again, how have we viewed athletes? Well, we viewed them as superhuman. They play a sport and it makes us happy.
Hmm.
And when they don't do well, then we don't care for them as much. And we never really did care for them to begin with. We care
Hmm.
for their talent, right? And their ability to, for the most part, make us happy when they score or when, they reach, I don't know, a record, they break a record or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
I've had to change my relationship with sport as I've become more aware of um, the not only the mistreatment, but just how we approach it as a culture. You know,
Hmm.
how inherent sport is in our culture. Yet once we really take the magnifying glass and really look at what's happening, not only from like a social perspective, but from a business perspective,
Hmm.
very problematic. It's very
Yeah.
problematic.
What do
So
you think about the NCAA paying athletes or not paying athletes for the time spent, the effort made
mhm.
to the program?
If you're going to bring in that much money and you are going to ask student athletes, I don't know about, you can call it whatever you want. You can reframe it as scholarships are paid for. There needs to be compensation.
Hmm.
And the compensation, I would say, needs to go primarily towards their health and wellness and making sure that school is paid for. You know what I mean? Like, and this is it's super touchy because the argument is that this is an educational institution. Well, yeah, but the educational institution is a business. It
Yep.
provides a product. You and I paid to go to school. As a whole, again, that's a whole nother conversation. I'm going to pay you to support. Yeah, whatever. I don't want to go down that route. I can already feel myself. I can feel myself going. I don't want to get off topic.
I know, I feel you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think that there should be compensation. I think athletes like yourself, you put in a ton of time, right? And we know things aren't necessarily linear, right? That injury that you got when you were running the 400 that one time,
Hmm.
that might come back up in some way, shape, or form later on in life. And especially if we're talking about physical sport, I mean, I think anybody playing like high level football is off their rock. I think they're crazy.
Oh my God.
They're
Yes.
crazy, and more power to them. More,
Right.
you know what I mean? But I think there's something off. I'm like, y'all are too big and too fast to do that, right? And then, I have, um,
Yeah, that's scary.
it's
It's like we're seeing Rams, like when Rams go at it, like that's
terrifying, and then get back up and do it again. I'm like, wait, what? Oh man, yeah, you guys are special. So I was talking to it's good, Devin Lewis Buchanan. He was just hired for the Las Vegas Raiders as their like alumni director, and he was trying out to play for the Raiders and got cut. He got his MSW. I forgot from what school, but either way, he was hired, and this is kind of the Raiders' first step in developing some sort of mental health program, right?
mm,
job is very exploratory. We had a really we had a conversation. He was like, "Look, man, this you don't understand how many people have reached out to me because I messaged him on LinkedIn when I saw that he was a graduate social work student, and I was like, oh man, this is great. You know, he's not only is he supporting people,
Mm-hmm.
a population that he knows so well. But this is a new avenue for social work, right? Like we don't historically think about social workers working
Yeah, truly.
in professional sports. Um, so luckily we had we had a great conversation, and it was just interesting. He has his own nonprofit that specifically works with mental health and student athletes, and I think more so at the high school level.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we were just talking about that experience of like, he was an All-American and he was, on his way and he got cut. And so I just think about these moments as you talk about getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been putting all this effort into this one moment because that's everyone's goal. I mean,
Yeah.
um, that's one of my kind of gripes with USA Swimming. From day one, USA Swimming sets the bar at the Olympics. Nobody's met
For
okay,
for little ass kids or like teenagers.
young kid, like 8 years old. I'm going to the Olympics, and who am I to tell you? Let me tell you, like, who am I to tell you that you can't do anything?
Yeah.
If you look at the if you look at the Olympics, if you look at the USA swimming team, men and women, everyone is about 6'2" and above, with long arms, long legs, huge feet, huge. You know what I mean? There is like, I'm like, okay, look, I'm not saying you can't do it.
Yeah.
There tends to be a type.
1,000%.
There tends to be a type, and so when he was talking about football, I was like, man, thousands and thousands of people trying to get what, a couple hundred jobs, and then when that happens, well, then what, right?
Right.
And I can't help but think, I mean, we've both been injured in a way where it never went away, right? Like I've heard people talk about this, like, yeah, when you train for something, you get hurt. Like, yeah, you're pretty much hurting for the rest of life. Those things don't go away. They might feel better, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but you still have lingering injuries, but that's kind of like part of life, right?
Yep.
Those type of injuries, we're talking about brain injuries and
Yeah.
injuries. Like, okay, how well? Okay, you tried out, it didn't work. Luckily for Devin, he got a job that he wanted that could, maybe support him financially and his health and wellness. But what about the thousands of others,
Yep.
athletes who didn't have that opportunity?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then that goes back into, well, yeah, you're calling them student athletes, but I think you treated them like athletes first.
Yep.
What type of education were they able to get? What type of resources did you provide those student athletes so
Mm-hmm.
they could have a better shot? Uh, yeah, I mean, man, I got a friend that worked for the University of Florida. He did his PhD in education. And, he talked about tutoring the football team. And he was like, man, there are programs that are watching these kids come out of 8th grade and they don't care if they can read, straight up. Like they don't know how they can.
That's crazy.
And so I'm like, okay, well, if you don't want to pay them, then make sure that they're equipped to handle the world after sport.
Mm-hmm.
And again, health and wellness, make sure that they have medical benefits, um, some type of compensate. Yeah, again,
Yeah, that's a valid point.
compensation. Sure. Do they need to be getting paychecks? I don't know about paychecks. That might be a little different. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that's someone with a little bit more creativity and who wants to go down that route. But I definitely think
Mm-hmm.
there should be some resources, much more resources for student athletes.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, I feel the way you do, and I think why don't we set them up for success and figure out a way if the transition out of sport is so incredibly difficult, and like you said, that's not something we talk about a lot at all. And one of my peers in the program was actually trying to find a niche in that route, is building programs that were tailored to allowing athletes. I think she was working with professional athletes to navigate their life and figure out how to cope with things when they didn't have sport.
Yeah.
And if we like what you're offering to students at the college level and the program that you're trying to put together, I'm so I want this to work and help any way that I can, because I think that it is something that is absent from so many programs. And we, again, going back to just not considering that these individuals are entire people and they have to deal with the real world once they get cut from the team, or once they get injured to the point where they can't get back and ever play in the same way that they did again. So having something that fosters a way of coping and dealing with the emotions, or finding habits and things that fill that space, and you can find joy and the
Yeah.
same passions that you had while playing sport, is so important. And I mean, just hearing you talk about how uh, your friend is going into that space with the NFL
Yeah.
is it makes me so happy to hear that there are things that are being established right now to, especially with football players. It's just they endure so much, and the return is so little for those that don't make it all the way. And I don't know if you watched Last Chance U,
Oh,
the
yeah,
most recent,
yeah.
the Laney College guys.
I just finished watching it because,
Oh yeah.
well, people found out, people in my network found out what I was doing. They're like, "Oh, you probably should check out." Matter of fact, Devin, the guy I was talking about, he's like,
Uh-huh.
"Checked it out," and I was like, "Well, I caught a couple." He's like, "Yeah, you should check it out. It's in Chabot, Chabot College in Oakland."
Yeah, that one. I mean, the just the amount of, they just have such a desire and a love for the sport that they're willing to endure anything in order to be able to put themselves in that place of potentially being injured and potentially getting cut and potentially not getting playing time. And again, I mean, for those guys, that's a space of vulnerability, right?
Right.
You leave it all out on the floor, not knowing that you're going to get anything back, or 100% return on what you put in. So it's a really, just it's fascinating to think about it from that standpoint, is just knowing that the willingness to do whatever it takes, it far outweighs any of the risks that you see that are have the potential to arise. And I mean, it's a blessing and a curse. It's both good and bad, because sometimes you just put so much effort and time and love into that, it's hard to find a balance between that and other things. And that's where athletes oftentimes feel like that they, I mean, it happens frequently. They go into depression after they don't have sport anymore, or they have severe anxiety because sport was the outlet. And I mean, I understand that. I didn't know how to feel after I didn't have track anymore. Running from the time I was 9 years old up until the time I was 24. Like, where do I even go from here? It's just such a weird world to have to live in without being at practice for 3 to 4 hours a day and doing strength training and going to meets every weekend. So I mean, I relate to that. And just the more that we can build up and empower our athletes and support them through programs like what you're trying to do, is I think it's just going to be so powerful, and something that can really have long lasting impacts, both for the individuals that are in it currently, that will be in it, and then I mean, just for the duration of their life. I mean, just having those conversations around what it looks like after sport, and asking hard questions like, okay, you want to make it to the MLS, but this is a percentage of athletes that go there. And I mean, it's hard. It's a matter of having those really difficult conversations, and sometimes you feel like in one-on-one sessions you feel like, oh man, I didn't mean to make them feel like I don't think they're going to make it, but at the same rate, I mean, I want you to put yourself in that space.
Yep.
Just I mean, just preview it and see what that might be like, because you if it doesn't work out the way you want it to, if you don't stay healthy, then what else are you passionate about that we can really get behind and figure out a way to build upon that.
Yeah. No, that's art, and you took the words out of my mouth. That's our job, and other people who are supporting and advocating for student athletes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our job to um, help them in that journey, because I don't want to take away from that passion, that drive, because like you talked about, that's that vulnerability of giving up, and not giving up in a bad way, but giving up the other parts of your life and dedicating yourself to this craft. That's something I don't want someone to take for granted, and I want them to recognize that. And in this work, it's okay. Well, how else can you apply that in your life? Let's say this doesn't work out. How do you harness that vulnerability, that passion
Mm-hmm.
to succeed? Well, how do you do it somewhere else, right? And I think that's where sport is so beautiful, because it is so representative of life,
Mm-hmm.
and you get to you have that feeling, right, where you've given everything, and you didn't necessarily get what you wanted back, right? I don't know how many opportunities there are in life to experience that. And
Right.
the more you put in, right? So, you talk about running in college, and having that experience, and to a certain degree feeling kind of lonely, right? Like there is a sense of like isolation after that. I can remember, finishing the longest swim was a 6.5 mile open water swim, and getting out,
I could never.
being, the first thing I was like happy, and somebody handed me a beer after, and I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, yeah, all right, yeah, this is cool. And then when I got on dry land, because we got up on a boat, and I said bye to my training partner, who also swam. It was I didn't know what to do. Like there was no party, there was no celebratory like festival or anything like that. It was just like, all right, well, I guess I'll just walk through the world, and I actually went out that night. I remember going out that night to a friend's birthday party, and I hadn't seen people,
Pre-COVID.
like, man, like, oh yeah, I went to a party and I saw people, and
What a world.
right, and I just remember talking to them, and they were, we were in Oakland, and we were on the water at some restaurant on the water, and they were like, "Oh yeah, what'd you do today?" Uh, but I was like, "Well, I swam from the Golden Gate Bridge to the Bay." And when people ask you what you do today, or like how you doing, sometimes it's just more of a formality. They're not really
Yeah.
you. They're like, "Hey, how you doing?" I just want to be respectful. And the look on people's faces, when you could tell that they did not really intend for me to like, they didn't intend to listen, but that something caught.
Right.
Wait, what? I'm like, yeah. Swim. They're like, they have nothing to say, because it's hard. That's something that they can't really imagine. The same way I can't imagine, what that race was, that 400 was like for you. Then kind of like, I don't know what that's like. I have no idea. And,
Yeah.
and I don't know what you would do after that, especially like you spent decades, right? You spent decades preparing for this. And so, yeah, of course, there's going to be some real difficult time. And luckily, again, we talk about relationships and support systems, right?
Hmm.
And you said it earlier, without those systems, then you don't know where you would be. right? That transition from college into the next phase of your life, whether that's personal training or going back to school.
Mm-hmm.
You need those support systems that are going to be honest with you. They're going to make you mad,
Yep.
sad. You'll be happy at times, but they're there, and they're relationships that you can trust.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about this in the therapeutic space. You can throw all these methodologies and all these theories around all you want to, but if you don't focus on the relationship between you and a client, what good are they?
Mm-hmm.
The person's not going to open up. You're not going to establish any type of safe relationship where any work can get done.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Right. Just wasting time.
We're sitting here, yeah, and I don't want to waste time. Like, I don't want to do that. I mean, I'm sure there are some people out there, who don't mind it, but that's not why I entered this. That's not why I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
The point of this is to do some work so you can feel better about you and whatever passions you have or whatever life you want to live.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I keep going back to you talking about having two supportive parents and then two supportive sisters, right? And we can't take those relationships for granted. And it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily need to be in the form of a sister or dad or mom. You know what I mean? Because we know family structures are, I don't know, maybe more unique than they've ever been, right?
Yep. Truly. They look all kinds of ways.
They look all types of ways. So, and friends for sure are a part of family structures. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, when I think about supporting student athletes, it's how do I, I'm constantly asking myself, how do I do either how do I develop that relationship with the student athlete, or how do I help if the student athlete doesn't have any other support systems, right? We've come to that point, or
Mm-hmm.
help someone recognize the supports that they do have.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Was that ever a struggle for you? I mean, maybe, I don't know. College is different because you weren't at home, right? So you definitely had to rely on some new people. And you're definitely, I mean, I would argue that you claiming part of your independence in college.
Oh yeah, too independent, like not going to class. I needed my sister in college to pick me up and throw me in the gym.
Right.
My freshman year was just, oh my gosh, I had so much independence and it was like, who needs class? And again, reflecting back on that time, I'm just like, man, I was so silly. I have a love for learning, like I said, and I read every day and I really place a lot of importance in my sessions with athletes to figure out ways to stay educated, whether it's like something that you're having to do for school or just something you really like and really, really build upon your knowledge. But I was kind of lucky in a lot of ways in that the university I went to, I'm from El Paso, Texas, and Las Cruces, New Mexico. I went to New Mexico State, and it's only a 45-minute drive from my parents' house in El Paso. It was probably like an hour.
Okay.
So I went home on the weekends when I wasn't competing, and so I got to be around them. And they went to probably, I think they maybe missed 2 or 3 meets for the duration of my career. Oh my gosh, yeah, they rallied behind me every step of the way, and I think I was really, really lucky in that sense, is just always having them to make me feel comforted in those moments when I didn't do so well. Or there was a time, and this is like this is like one of those low points in my academic career where I was doing so badly, and I hope this story just inspires someone if they feel like they want to go forward and keep moving into getting education and going to school. do it, because I wasn't in this headspace before, but I was on the verge of getting kicked out of school because my grades are so low, and I was just being such an ass about like getting up. And I mean, I could do the work. I was more than capable. There was never anything that inhibited me other than just my distaste for getting up and going to class and taking prerequisites. I didn't care about math appreciation. And so my my parents were in the space where I was ready to give up. I was F this and F that and track whatever, I'll figure it out, and I'm just gonna drop out and see what happens, join the military. And that was my mind set at the time. And my parents were they were looking at it from a less emotional standpoint than I was. And they encouraged me, and my dad especially was just like, he's like, I really don't think that this is something you want to do, just give up on school. And as track especially, I think that it would be worth trying to give it another try. And he's like, but listen, if you don't get it together, then we're not going to help you. And at that point, that was my freshman year, I had walked onto the team. um, and I ended up earning a scholarship my sophomore year up into my senior year. And I turned it around, and I definitely just made it a priority to just be more on top of school. But I really feel like the system that I had, and again in my conversations with these athletes, like I really just so incredibly lucky, blessed, whatever it is, I don't know, just to have in been in a place where I was always felt like I could be supported by my parents and by my sisters. And I know that people are not as lucky to have that. And it really just it really astounds me, like people overcome things all the time. And I was reading, I don't know if you are a big fan of Malcolm Gladwell and his books,
Sure.
but David and Goliath is an incredibly well written book about how a lot of the times trials and tribulations are the reason that the most successful people succeeded. I mean, they didn't have support systems, they didn't have anyone. And so, like for me, especially when I feel like giving up on something now,
Yeah.
I'm like, I have no right to do that. Like I've had people that have made me feel as though I always had the power to do better, to make it through, to persevere. And I feel like I would be doing them a disservice if I had dropped out of school. And I mean, with the master's program, like there was times where I was just pulling my hair out at 5 a.m. because my procrastinating ways didn't allow me to start the paper I knew about from the beginning of the semester until the night before it was due.
Yeah.
And I think about just like my background, right? I'm Mexican and Native American, and I think about all the people that came before me and had to endure in order for me to be here. And that's like the most grounding thing. That's something that I came into very recently. And the world feels chaotic right now, and like things are always in disarray, like something's going right, and then the next moment it so quickly changes. And that has been one of the thoughts that has always brought me back to a place where I can feel okay. And feeling okay in this world right now, I don't have to be great, I don't have to be ecstatic, like just being okay right now is what I'm good with. And I think it's a feat to
Yeah.
be able to get up and get out of bed, especially people like, I can't imagine dealing with depression and severe anxiety and panic attacks right now as an individual. And I just feel like I've done a lot of work as far as developing mechanisms to cope with those feelings that would lead to just me getting in that negative space. But I've honestly just had a lot of really, really good people behind me that have always empowered me and made me feel like anything was possible and that I could create my own reality. And I really just feel that there, again, just the sport aspect of it and being an athlete is really, really played a huge role in that in this life.
Yeah, yeah. You just dropped quite a few
In
nuggets there, Deserae.
my 10-minute rant.
Yeah, that that failure piece. You cannot overstate failure and trials and tribulations. I think that's the real reason. That's the real reason why sport is so important, because you get to you. It's inevitable. If you try, you're going to fail. It's not if, it's when. You know,
Yep.
it's when you're gonna fail, and how many times. Like,
Yep, that too.
how many times are you gonna fail? And I see that is something that we run away from, right? And we talk about, whether it's being an entrepreneur or an athlete, a student, whatever it may be. How do you become comfortable with failing and understanding that it is part of this process of success.
Hmm.
It is. There's something about it. Not only does it, you know, not only do you have to sit with it, and that's we've overused the word vulnerability, but it's so true. Um, when I think about creativity and resilience, I think that comes from restriction, right? Like, when you're
Hmm.
restricted, that's when you get real creative. And
Yeah, truth.
and as we tie it back to, student athletes that we serve, who are enduring uh, complex lives, not only as a student, not only as an athlete, as a son, as a daughter, and then you add on whatever other identities that they're holding, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, that's where, we and other people that are doing the work like us have to reiterate, like, no, like, you got it. You got everything you need already. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Like, if you're surviving this, and I argue surviving, like, if you're able to endure this, then things later on down the road, you'll be able to navigate.
Absolutely.
Like, that's what I see when I see folks who are going through really rough times. And there's a I don't want to bring it back to me, but, like, when I'm out there in the open water, there was a time like three
Yeah,
weeks
that's terrifying.
there was a time 3 weeks ago I had to hold on to, like, a tire on a dock because the current had changed, and it was so strong. If me and my training partner didn't get onto this tire, we were gonna go, like, we would have to float
Wow.
miles, and we would have figured out how to get out of the water, but it would have, it'd be like, okay, well, we're gonna have to walk back. But it's in that I'm yeah, it's in that chaos where I get clarity.
Hmm.
I have to get clarity. Like, that's what I love about open water swimming. Like, I'm like, okay, not only is it a reminder that I am a tiny ass dot,
Yeah.
it is a reminder of, now, normally when I walk up and down the street, right, I'm a larger person, right? And so, normally I don't have to worry about, like, oh, how so, I'm so small, I'm so much smaller than everyone. I don't ever have to worry about that. And I think that being a swimmer has always helped
Hmm.
me with that. They're like, man, you are so weak. Not weak in a bad way, but, like, you are not strong. Like, you are not strong. And being out in that water is a easy reminder.
Humbled real fast.
Just so humbled every time. I smack in the face, swallow water, wait. what was that? I mean, there were like 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, look at this. I'm like, look at this whale, like this
I
thing.
can't fathom.
And so we need those moments of chaos. And then I would argue, I guess, right, that that those moments bring us to like new ideas. Right,
Mm.
you're up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the paper is due at 9 or 10.
Mm.
And you're like, oh, okay. Maybe the paper isn't the greatest, but you picked up a skill in getting this thing done.
Mm-hmm.
You understood um, how to work. Now, or you learned like, I need to work on this. I can't. I can't keep staying up.
Both the things.
You know what I'm saying? Like I can't keep staying up till 5 o'clock in the morning and expect to get this thing done at 10. Like I've got to go back and work on this process.
Right.
Um, yeah, I can't. I mean, I just yeah. I love. I've learned to. I've I'm learning, and I'm always working on this. How to sit with the chaos and admitting that it's chaos. Like
Mm-hmm.
right now is a great moment. I think anyone who's able to kind of sit down right now, acknowledge everything that's going on,
Mm-hmm.
figure out an avenue to like talk about it, whether that's with a therapist or a friend or a family member, whatever it is. If you're able to do that right now, I think you're setting yourself up for so much success, because there's a lot of folks who can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's a lot of people who are choosing not to.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Or like, yeah, things are tough, but like, whatever. I'll just keep kind of going on my normal schedule, because like acknowledging what's actually happened would present a whole bigger issue with who I am and how I present to the world.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's too much for some.
No one said this work was easy, Deserae. No, this work was easy. And, oh, you want me to like, those players that you worked with? Oh, wait, you want me to think? Stop moving. So I've been told my entire life, in order to be successful at this sport, I'm supposed to keep moving.
Right. And now.
Okay. So when I slow down, thoughts start running. Be like, yep.
That's supposed to happen.
And sometimes those thoughts are scary. Yep, exactly. Yep, and they're thoughts. They're not necessarily truths, and it's maybe not necessarily how you feel, but
Mm-hmm.
how do you figure out what's what? And I mean, that's the work that job.
Yep.
No one said this was easy. No one. I have yet to meet someone who's like, oh, you know what? Like doing work, behavioral work or psychological work. Oh yeah, it's super easy. I'm like,
Totally. My dad has always said if it were easy, then everyone would do it. And that was like when it came to sport or like going to school or just furthering your education. And that's something I've always really gone back to too. And I really like, I just, the chaotic part of it. There's beauty in the chaos. There's things that can be, you really establish yourself as a person and kind of develop a stronger parts of your character in those moments. And sometimes they're super terrifying, like just even picturing myself in open water. Drowning is probably one of the biggest fears that I have in this life,
yeah.
for whatever reason. And so that's where I immediately went when I was picturing myself there. But it's those and if you do get a chance to pick up David and Goliath, I think it would really resonate with you for that reason, what you just said, just the chaos that forms, and there's no ability to have any control over it. You control the controllables. What are my strengths in this moment? What are my resources in this moment? And what do I already have that I can use and build upon and turn this moment into something that might have been perceived as someone else as like a really negative or a fail.
Sure.
And like you said before, I mean, there's a failure is something that just happens in the world of sport. And it's just one of those things you deal with. But a real failure is when we don't learn from those experiences. And I think that's another lesson too that we really gotta instill in athletes. Because I mean, I just I mean, you watch games and you see body language, and maybe it's not so much on the professional side where they're really good about harnessing their emotions, that they won't, sometimes some of them are like very
Quick.
reactive.
Yeah.
But even, I mean, at the college level, and reflecting back in my own training, like if I had a bad jump or I was on a long jump and I fouled like something that was, or a jump that was supposed to be really good, I could just, in my body language, and just I would just immediately go into that space, and everyone else can see that. And so that might build someone else up to come back and want to hit the board hard and jump better because they see me defeated. And just maintaining that level head in those moments where we do feel like we could be defeated, but we want to turn it around into something positive is so important. And again, that's something I'm working on
Yeah.
every single day.
Yeah. No, it's all a practice. This it's not gonna happen. Yeah, everything is a practice, man. There's no point in time where we've figured it all out, and I think, man, this is perfect, full circle. The moment that you can admit that you don't know, there's a lot of freedom there. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think the more people I come in contact with that I that I see as highly intelligent people are always quick and be like, there have been multiple times where they're like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. It's the other folks where you're like, oh yeah, I got to answer it, and this is other. How
I
do
know some of those people.
yeah, uh, we all should be confident in how we speak, but they're again going back to the idea of like, yeah, I don't know. Like I'm not sure. There's plenty of there's plenty of situations that I'm constantly just, that's something that's happened during grad school is so many beliefs that I had in the past um, have been thrown out the window. They really have. Just like, yeah, I really didn't know, huh? Yeah, all right. But yeah, I know you got some classes to run, and I don't want to take too much more of your time. Um, but this has been super dope. I mean, I think that once I initially got a chance to talk to you, um, I was like, oh yeah, there's something more there. Like I really do want to learn, and this has been, I had to write about this podcast today to a potential guest, about why I'm doing the podcast. It
Mm-hmm.
is it's a learning tool for me. You know what I mean? The more people I get around, not only am I exposed to different people, but their narratives,
Mm-hmm.
like the better equipped I am to help support different people, right?
That multicultural lens and the multicultural competence, 100%.
Yeah, like you know, I, yeah, I've just I like again, I started off with gratitude, and I really want to end it with more. Like you're super down to earth, and I appreciate you being vulnerable and talking about failures and um, those kind of complexities that you had as a female student athlete and as a female athlete, just as a person in general. You know what I mean? And not knowing a ton about me except the work that I'm trying to do, right? The work that we're trying to do.
Right.
So
You're always in that space though, right? Where you like asking the other person to disclose a bunch about them, and then you have to be like, nope, no self-disclosure. But
yeah,
no, you and I have had some good conversations outside of this.
yeah, yeah. We'll continue. We'll continue. We've got work to do, and obviously, if there's, we're just at the beginning of whatever journey we're on. Um,
I'm all here for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working on trying to end every podcast with and I said working because I missed out on the last one. But I've been working on asking every guest, what is something that you love? And it can be
What
now, point in time, whatever. You take it where you want to go.
music? I love music. I know you do. I know you do.
It has been my saving grace within the last, well, actually forever, but specifically within grad school, it takes me other places.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel the way you do. It's just been one of those and you and I have talked about this before too. It's just the element of going out and hearing your favorite artist play and being in that live space and just having that kind of, I mean, obviously it's like a first world problem and there's so many other, but I mean, we talk about feeding our souls, right? And getting that self-care in and just, again, adapting to ways to find that elsewhere. So and for you, someone who plays and has the equipment in order to put sets together and stuff, I think that's something that is really, I hope it's helpful because I know that I've just been, I have equipment here too. I'm just learning how to mix
Yeah.
and
All right.
yeah.
Yes. We need more. We need more. You're you're the next healer. You're the next healer.
Man, I hope so. I'm in that space again. The vulnerability part of it, just like putting your your set out there and hoping that the mix sounds clean. It's
You took
I
me
don't know how long have you been playing and putting out music?
maybe playing where I felt comfortable and like getting out, maybe a couple years. I was so, you nailed it in talking about vulnerability. I've had mixes recorded for over a year and I never put them out because I was so concerned about it being perfect. And oh damn, what if somebody hears me? I mean, there was I DJ'd a party. I DJ'd two parties last week. It was last week. I don't even, whatever. Some time ago that I can't tell if it was a week or 2 weeks ago. And I was DJing, and this guy came up to me and was like, and I DJ'd like it was a Friday and a Saturday. It was Halloween weekend, and one guy came up to me at the first party, and he dapped me up and was like, "Oh yeah, DJ from to another DJ, like what up? Just wanted to like shout you out." I was like, "Oh yeah, appreciate that." Now for a split second, we talk about thoughts. For a split second, I was like, "Oh man, I wonder if I'm any good. Like, am I playing a good set tonight? Like, I sucks, man. You know what I mean? Like, and it wasn't. It was like, so it was just a thought, but that thought used to be way stronger when I was first getting around.
Like almost inhibiting
Like,
stronger, like
God, I wonder. Oh, man, it was like the learning process of figuring out like how to read a room, how do I feel, what.
mhm.
Where do I want to go with this set? Was that so that thing was that part. I was like, oh damn, I remember that feeling I used to have. And then I was like, oh, yep, don't need that anymore. You know what I'm saying? Now on Saturday I played Saturday I did Saturday was so fun. Saturday was like I did a 7-hour set.
Damn, you have to have a lot of music in the arsenal for
I have a lot of music.
like 10 to 12 tracks an hour.
Yeah, there was yeah, I mean, there's definitely nights where I get in. This is dangerous during grad school. There's nights where
Rabbit hole.
I'm like, okay, and it's 5 o'clock in the morning, and I got a lot of music. I don't have any work done. I have zero work done. I
Productive in another way.
which is absolutely healthy. Hopefully down the road I'll work this into education reform. Be like, look, you people have to have the other part of themselves.
Love it.
You can't be a successful student or a person if there's just one. You're just forced to learn so much that it hurts.
Mhm.
But that night it started off kind of like at dusk, and like we had people around us in Golden Gate Park, and there's people around. It was cool, and like it started getting cold as the night went, as the sun went down, and naturally people were like, all right, it's kind of cold. Like,
Right.
all right, I don't know how much
It's
longer.
about that time.
Yeah, I gotta go. And so I think when we talked briefly about house and electronic music, right? There's definitely a culture of like you just keep playing. You know what I mean? Like if
Yep.
one person or no people, you just whatever. That's just the energy. That's how it goes. And so there was two people left. There was two people, and they were rocking with me. I was like, all right, cool. I was,
I was just about to ask you. I hope they were up front by the
yeah,
speakers.
they were right by the speaker rocking. I was like, hey, as long as there's two, whatever. Um, and so they walked off, and they were like, look, there's a group of people down the way, and we're gonna invite them over. I was like, I'll be here. Like, I'm not gonna. I think maybe that was at like 10 or 11, right? And they come back and there's like, yeah, they're just being kind of lame. I was like, dude, I mean, I don't care. I'm here. I'm gonna play. Like, I'm not
Mhm.
stopping until this generator runs out of gas. Like, we're gonna keep this going. So needless to say, I played until 2 a.m, but I think at like,
Dang, at Golden Gate?
yeah,
That's nice.
at midnight, it was weird. I started seeing these lights come out of the trees. And I was like, yo, what the hell is that? And it was people that were walking in the park, and like, people put lights on their bikes and shit like that.
Yeah.
Man, by the end, like by midnight, 12:30, whatever, there was like 15 people who had walked
No.
and were like rocking. I'm like, yep, see, this is exactly.
Energy. Just pull them in with your energy field.
This dude, yeah, and I was mentioning that because the night before I was like, oh yeah, it wasn't necessarily. I was like, yeah, I'm not feeling like super great about this set. It's cool, I'm having a good time, but I had that kind of like feeling of like, oh, maybe people aren't really liking it that much,
Hmm.
but that one moment at like midnight, and that I felt like I had a pretty good 7 hour set considering the amount of time it was.
Right? That's significant.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's cool. But that moment where I'm seeing people come out of the trees and
The woodwork.
the woodwork, like, wait, what? Then before this guy left, he was like, dude, you have made my night. You killed it.
Oh, I love it.
He gave me his necklace. He was like, yo, I'm like, yo, that is the moment. This is why I do it, right? It's because somebody else got so much joy, right? Like, yes,
Hmm.
I love doing this thing, but the reason I do it is so other people have fun and other people
Yeah.
can escape whatever they got going on. And so when he did that, I was like, well, my night's complete. I'm going to keep playing. But that right there, just like now I'm like, okay, now I really got to dig in here. You know what I mean? Like I really
Hmm.
be like, okay, what kind of tracks do I have in that people are gonna be like, yeah. Um, I had some dude. I guess I don't remember, but I'm guessing my friends gave them my Instagram handle, and
Nice. Book you for parties later.
people were like, yo, man, like the next day, people were like, yo, man, you made my night, dude. That was the last thing I was expecting, and I was just, yeah, midnight. If I was walking through Golden Gate Park, or something like, oh yeah, we had one black light, but it was in that spot. It was just like illuminating the trees and me. Yeah, and it was
That is dope.
yeah.
Providing a service to
Just trying to get some sense of like, oh, remember when we used to hang out? Remember
right?
when we used to do
Just
this?
a little taste.
You know what I mean?
I love that. Yeah. I mean, hear you say that too. I mean, about the thought that came with it. It's just the performance. Again, you're performing for people. And when you first started, in sport, we talk about MEP, the things that are your control. The mental impacts the emotional, impacts the physical. So like when you first started DJing a couple of years back, and then the thought was, oh, I don't know how this is going to go over. I don't know if they're going to like it. And so the emotion is just like worry or a disconnect. And then the physical, maybe you don't play as well because you're not as concentrated. And now it seems like you've harnessed that ability to really just find the joy in it, and it kind of just creates a space and a place where people can come and really just feed off of that energy. I mean, confidence really is an energy, and passion and joy, that's an energy. People will see that and they'll find it. I mean, I
Absolutely.
just I love the mental picture I have of people just coming out of the woods with their lights to their music.
Normal, like I think a lot of folks normally would be like, "Oh, what the hell is going on?" Like, what coming out of the trees? And in my head, I'm like, I was coming from a place of curiosity, but my curiosity is like, oh, I guess people are coming out of the trees. Like, all right, well, I guess it's a party. You know what I mean? All right, yeah, all right, maybe I'm doing something, and I couldn't help but think that same thing. I was like, somebody heard like a bass line, right? But I told myself, I was like, I'm putting out some type of energy right now,
Hmm.
or like, I want some of that.
Yep.
I want some of that. You know what I mean? Like, yes, the music obviously is a huge help, but maybe I
A
got a
1000%. Yeah.
potential there, but whatever. you know, that's how it goes. But yeah, I'm hopefully sooner rather than later we'll do this again. I think there's going to be much more to talk about, specifically as you entered your next phase of life.
Yeah,
Uh,
whatever that is, I don't know. Who knows?
Hopefully we'll be there. Not hopefully we'll be there to support each other. I see you being.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, I'm definitely going to lean on you for more support for the program that I've got going, that we've got going. We'll say that the program we've got going, and yeah, before it's 5 a.m. Let's get back to pursuing our lives. But yeah, thanks again, Desiree.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and for taking the time. Your life is very busy. There's a lot going on. So thank you for, I mean, just providing the space for people from different fields. Like I watched a few of the people that you had on, and the questions that you asked, and just the intent in which you listen is I admire it. And I mean, you're in your element as far as like working with people and really facilitating these kinds of questions that make people think. And so I just really wanted to commend you on that. And again, thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, we got some work to do, so
That we do.
we'll make it happen.
Cool. All right. Well, till next time. Enjoy whatever the hell you got going on, and damn rest. How about that?
Yeah, some self-care. Don't you forget. You need a self-care too.
I will. I will.
All
All right. See
right, Joseph. Thank you so much. We'll see you later.